Hi, I'm Raylene, and welcome to Khaleesi Clues. This will be the 11th video in a series of Game of Thrones Season 8 prediction videos that I am currently making for my channel. If you are trying to follow along in order, this is the continuation from my previous video titled Sansa and the Beasts. Although this is strictly a prediction video, I will be discussing clues found in the HBO series from seasons 1 through 7 and also from any of the Song of Ice and Fire books that have already been released. In my previous video, I talked about Sansa Stark and how she has a pattern set for her character, that she is constantly involved with the beasts of the story. In this video, I need to talk a little bit about Tyrion Lannister. So this is something that I'd like to throw out there for people to think about. I am a believer in the theory that Tyrion Lannister is actually the bastard son of King Aerys and Joanna Lannister. I know the subject is kind of a toss-up for people. Half of the people think that he is secretly a Targaryen bastard or Blackfyre, and the other half think that he is truly just Tywin's son, a Lannister. Some people go as far as saying Tyrion is Tywin's only true-born son, with Jaime and Cersei actually being the Mad King's bastard children. In my opinion, I believe that there is a good chance that all three of Tywin's children could actually be the bastard children of the Mad King. All of the children have characteristics that could be attributed to both Lannister and Targaryen genes. We also know that the Mad King was definitely attracted to Lady Joanna. King Aerys was sure to let that fact be known by his own actions and comments about Joanna on more than one occasion. Sir Barristan Selmy, who served as one of King Aerys' guards, was well aware of the king's attraction to Lady Joanna and even brought that subject up to Dany in the A Dance of Dragons book. It was even rumored that the Mad King took unwanted liberties with Joanna's body during the bedding ceremony on the night of her wedding to Tywin. Lady Joanna had actually been serving as one of Queen Rhaella's ladies-in-waiting during that period of time. It was said that Queen Rhaella turned a blind eye to most of the king's infidelities, but she definitely did not approve of him using her ladies as his whores. With Queen Rhaella's statement and attitude, it makes one suspect that it was for this very reason why the Queen dismissed Lady Joanna shortly after her marriage to Tywin. Not to mention, why wasn't anything written in regards to her abrupt dismissal to begin with? Why not put the rumors to rest by stating exactly why Lady Joanna was dismissed, unless possibly the rumors were true? But there are more clues to this than just rumors. We have some vague dates available to us to consider. So if we look at the timeline that was placed in the World of Ice and Fire book, Tywin and Joanna were married in 263 AC. It states, shortly thereafter, Lady Joanna was dismissed from the Queen's services and returned to Casterly Rock. No specific date was given, just the key phrase, not long thereafter, was used in the book. Then in 266 AC, Lady Joanna gave birth to Cersei and Jaime. Looking at those specific years mentioned, and since we do not have exact dates with months or days listed, if I did my math right, and of course that's always questionable, we can either be dealing with a maximum of 48 months or as little as 26 months. It would just depend on the exact dates when the events took place. Just so I can explain, I calculated 48 months by considering each of the 4 years of 263, 264, 265, and 266 AC as having a full and complete 12 months. For example, Tywin and Joanne were married on January of the year 263, and then Joanna gave birth to the twins on December of the year 266. That would give you 48 months. I also calculated the 26 months by considering the possibility of Joanna and Tywin marrying in December of the year 263, the full 12-month cycle for the years 264 and 265, with the birth of the twins landing on January of the final year of 266. Now, when you take into consideration a woman is only pregnant for 40 weeks, which is close to the 10-month period, it makes one think that the twins, Cersei and Jaime, could not possibly be the Mad King's bastard children. There's just too big of a time gap. Even making the timing worse yet is the fact that the average length of pregnancy for a woman carrying twins is 35 weeks, so closer to the 9-month period of time. So that seems nearly impossible for the twins to be the product of the Mad King and Lady Joanna, especially if you are just basing it off of the years listed in the World of Ice and Fire book. Except for one thing. It seems to me that the clues are not the information that is written in the book, but more so the information that is not written in the book. The absence of any mention or notation of Tywin leaving King's Landing to visit his newlywed wife, Lady Joanna, or even vice versa. No mention of Lady Joanna returning to King's Landing to visit her husband during that period of time in question, the years of 263 to 266 AC. If there was no visitations after the time of Lady Joanna's departure from King's Landing from either party, then there is absolutely no way that she could have become pregnant during that questionable period of time when they were apart from each other, unless she had an affair with somebody else at Casterly Rock. If that was the case, I'm sure it would have been well known and definitely not tolerated by Tywin. Tywin was way too proud of a man to allow such a thing. So to me, the fact that there was no visitations between the two can only mean one thing. Lady Joanna must have been pregnant at the time of her departure from King's Landing. That's why she was dismissed from the Queen's services. That's the only way the timeline works out for the twins being the product of Lady Joanna and the Mad King. It's almost like you have to work backwards when trying to figure out the timeline. Basically, the twins were born in the year 266 AC. Depending on the time or the month of the year, Joanna could have been dismissed from Queen Rhaella somewhere in 265 AC. This would still work for the vague statement written in the book about Lady Joanna leaving King's Landing shortly thereafter, her wedding to Tywin, which was sometime in the year of 263 AC. What that means is that within the first 2 years or less of their marriage, it must have been discovered that the Mad King and Lady Joanna were either having an affair, or even worse, the king was forcing himself upon Joanna until she finally became pregnant. So taking all of this into consideration, I would say that Cersei and Jaime definitely stand a good chance of being the Mad King's bastard children. It could also explain why the king decided to travel with Tywin back to Casterly Rock in 267 AC after the death of Tywin's father, Tytos. More importantly, it was after the birth of the twins, who may possibly be the Mad King's children. So maybe the king's trip to Casterly Rock was not to give emotional support to his childhood friend Tywin, as some would like to think, but purely for self-serving motives and the curiosity of the king. There is another piece of information that is written in the World of Ice and Fire book. It states that Joanna seldomly visited King's Landing after her dismissal. Matter of fact, there is only one visitation noted for Joanna returning to King's Landing, and that was in the year 272 AC for the King's Anniversary tourney. Amazingly, that particular trip seemed to turn out to be pretty productive because once again, she returned to Casterly Rock and then gave birth to her third child, Tyrion, in 273 AC. She unfortunately died during the delivery of Tyrion. Again, when looking at the dates, we could be dealing with a maximum of 24 months or a minimum of 2 months' time. Since there is no mention of her being heavy with pregnancy during her visit to King's Landing, I would definitely shy away from the lesser amount of time. Without having exact dates available, we can absolutely and easily say that Tyrion is possibly the Mad King's bastard child also. One thing I would like to bring up is the fact that Tywin and Joanna had no other pregnancies ever recorded during their marriage. The only time that Joanna ever became pregnant was when she was in close proximity to both Tywin and King Aerys, which of course is what makes us all wonder and debate the children's actual parentage. But doesn't the fact that there is no other pregnancies noted for Tywin and Joanna during their marriage seem to speak miles to the possibility of Tywin actually being sterile? I would think that as important of a living legacy was to Tywin, that he would have been more on top of Lady Joanna than off of her during their few short years together. I would assume that he would have tried to impregnate her from the day they were married. We've seen on the show how much he drilled that exact importance of duty onto Tyrion about Sansa. According to Tywin, he even ordered Cersei to remarry and breed with Loras Tyrell. But we all know how that turned out. Lady Joanna didn't conceive until possibly 2 to 3 full years into their marriage. It makes more sense to me that her husband, who she was probably having sex with on many more occasions, was actually sterile, and the man who she was having sex with on rare occasions, whether by force or willingly, was definitely not sterile, which eventually led to getting the right timing and ending with her becoming pregnant. When the twins came out looking like Lannisters, Tywin might have even believed, or hoped more so, that they were his children. But then many years go by again without another pregnancy. I find it to be definitely suspicious. Just by looking at these few clues, we can see that there is absolutely the possibility of them all being Targaryen bastards. Even if they are all Targaryen bastards, I wonder if it will ever be revealed in the show or in the books. That is yet to be seen, and I would surely hope so, and I do believe Tyrion will for sure be confirmed, but right now, I need to go over some more of the many clues that point to Tyrion being a Targaryen. We've already gone over his birth date, so let's start with the obvious, and that is, for instance, his overall appearance. Although he does not look like this on the show, in the books, he has 2 different colored eyes. One is green, which is a trait for the Lannister family, and the other one is black, which can be attributed to the Targaryen or the Blackfyre gene. His hair in the books is said to be lank, and the color so blonde it almost seemed white. His beard is a mixture of blonde and black hairs. Tyrion is a dwarf, which some attribute to the Targaryens and their reputation of having deformed children. Tyrion was rumored to have been born with demonic eyes and even a tail that Tywin had ordered to be removed. Some even said he was a monster with lion's claws and teeth so long he was unable to close his mouth. Yet, as Oberyn Martell reported upon his personal observation of Tyrion, he was just a baby. I personally think these rumors of Tyrion's deformities were attached to him because of the reported rumors of Lady Joanna and the Mad King's possible infidelities. It was probably the people's way of stating that Joanna had birthed a dragon child of her own without outright saying Tyrion is the product of Lady Joanna and King Aerys Targaryen. I mean, think about it. We've all been a victim to it. We say one thing to someone, and by the time it gets back to you, it's completely different from what you said or how it was meant. It could have been someone who simply said, "That baby of Joanna's is definitely a dragon baby." Dragon meaning a Targaryen baby. And some nosy Nancy overhearing that statement only to report to the next person, "Ethel, they say he was a dragon. He had scales and a tail, breathing fire and all." And then that statement gets spread around like dragon fire until there's no shred of the first original statement left. I mean, seriously, this is exactly how rumors get started. But moving on, we also have Tywin's own opinion. He definitely does not think Tyrion is his child. He states this himself many times on the show. When Tyrion asks Tywin to give him Casterly Rock, since he is the lawful heir to Tywin's lands, Tywin angrily says, "Men's laws give you the right to bear my name and display my colors, since I cannot prove that you are not mine." And then we have another time when Tyrion asks his father, "When have you ever done something that wasn't in your interest, but solely for the benefit of the family?" Tywin, once again, full of bitter anger, states, "The day that you were born, I wanted to carry you into the sea and let the waves wash you away. Instead, I let you live, and I brought you up as my son, because you're a Lannister." Tywin is right. Tyrion is a Lannister, by his mother's blood. The same as Jon is a Stark, by Lyanna's blood. Then we have the final scene before Tywin's death when Tyrion says, "All of my life you've wanted me dead." And Tywin admittedly says, "Yes." Then there are also the not so blatant clues given to us about Tyrion possibly being a Targaryen, such as the incident with Tyrion's first wife, Tysha. When Tywin heard that Tyrion was secretly married, he ordered Jaime to tell Tyrion that it was all set up. Jaime was forced to tell Tyrion that Tysha was actually a whore paid to make Tyrion a man. Tywin then ordered the guards to gang rape Tysha for Tyrion to witness. All of the guards paid her with a silver coin. Then, in order to drive the message home, Tywin demanded for Tyrion to be the last man to rape her and pay her with a special coin, a gold coin. Tywin's reasoning for this difference in the payment was for the fact that Lannisters were worth more. The clue in that tragedy is the coins. Silver coins are referred to as being the silver stag coin because, of course, they have a stag embossed on one side of the coin. The gold coin is referred to as a dragon because, of course, it has a dragon embossed on one side of the coin. So there could be some hidden significance behind Tywin's insistence on Tyrion paying with that gold coin, because in Tywin's eyes, Tyrion is a dragon. In the books, Tyrion also encounters a red priest of the Rohalor religion. His name is Moqorro, who states that he has seen Tyrion in a vision. Moqorro tells Tyrion that he sees in the flames dragons, dragons old and young, true and false, bright and dark, and you, a small man with a big shadow, snarling in the midst of it all. What do we know that casts big shadows? Why, dragons, of course. In the show, we have Tyrion and Varys encounter the Red Priestess while on their journey to meet Daenerys. While she is preaching to the crowd of people around her, she stops momentarily and gazes directly at Tyrion as if she is sensing his presence, which then makes both of them feel extremely uncomfortable, and they leave the area immediately. Now here's your spoiler warning for those of you who do not want to hear anything about any of the pre-released chapters for the Winds of Winter. There is even a clue in one of the Tyrion chapters that George R.R. Martin has released. Tyrion and Jorah are trying to convince the Second Sons to join Dany's side in the war over in Meereen. A battle breaks out and the youngish commander is killed by Jorah. After this incident, Tyrion happens to look down and finds out of all things, a white dragon Saivasi game piece has fallen to the ground and landed right in front of his feet. Now, come on. Why else would there be any reason for that line to be in the story if it wasn't in there deliberately to be used as a clue for Tyrion being a dragon? George R.R. Martin has even made Tyrion's character have an extreme interest in dragons. Even as a child, at night, he would dream of riding a dragon and imagine that he was a lost Targaryen princeling or a Valyrian dragon lord. Once he even asked his uncles for a dragon as a name day present. Begging them, he said, it wouldn't need to be a big one. It could be little, like I am. Tyrion cried himself to sleep that night when they informed him that the last dragon had died a century ago. Finally, in Season 6, Episode 2 of the show, we have the release of the two chained dragons, Viserion and Rhaegal. That is the scene where Tyrion decides that both dragons need to be unchained and freed from the pyramids of Meereen. That part was very similar to the Jon and Drogon first close encounter scene from Season 7. The dragons at first are snarling and hissing at Jon and Tyrion, only to let them both approach and touch them by the end of the scene. The show even included Tyrion's dialogue and story of wanting a dragon as a child on top of it. I would think there must be some importance to that scene, some type of payoff still yet to come. I have always hoped that the special saddle Tyrion made for Bran was foreshadowing of future use of a special saddle made for Tyrion to ride his very own dragon. I thought for sure Viserion would have been his dragon, Rhaegal, Jon's, and Drogon for Dany. Those dreams were shattered with the death of Viserion thanks to the Night King. But I'm not giving up hope yet. There seems to be a couple of reasons people typically dispute the idea of Tyrion being a Targaryen. One argument is a strange dream that Jaime has about his mother from the books. In Chapter 44, in A Feast for Crows, Jaime has a dream of his mother while he is in Riverrun. This is not just an ordinary dream for Jaime, as Jaime himself states that when he dreams, he always has two hands. This one is different. It is a true dream, where he still only has one hand. This dream that Jaime has reminds me a lot of Daenerys' so-called dreams when Quaithe appears and speaks to her. These dreams of Dany and Jaime seem very real. Even though Joanna has been dead for many years, it feels as if her spirit is there speaking to Jaime while he sleeps. In the dream, Joanna tells Jaime how his father could never abide being laughed at. That was the thing he hated most. She continues to say, "We all dream of things we cannot have. Tywin dreamed that his son would be a great knight and his daughter would be a queen. He dreamed they would be so strong and brave and beautiful that no one would ever laugh at them." Jaime then assures her, "I am a knight and Cersei is a queen." A tear rolls down her cheek as she turns her back to him and walks away, her skirt whispering lullabies as it brushes the floor. This to me seems to support the idea that Tywin, as I mentioned before, may have been sterile. Tywin hated being laughed at. That is definitely well known. What do you think would have happened if it was known that Tywin was never able to produce an heir? He would have been laughed at or ridiculed just the same as Tyrion was by the men of the court for not consummating and producing an heir with Sansa. Having an heir, especially a male heir, is a statement, just the same as a fertile woman is an attractive trait. Perfect example is how unattractive Khaleesi Baratheon feels for not being able to provide Stannis with a male heir. I think that is why Joanna says, we all dream of things we cannot have. Tywin dreamed of having beautiful, strong, important children, something she knows, or maybe figured out, that he could never have because he was sterile. Now, maybe Tywin could never come to terms with this, and maybe he never even realized he was sterile. Maybe Joanna knew, yet didn't have the heart to tell him. Maybe Joanna, knowing the king's attraction for her, used this to her advantage to produce an heir for Tywin. When the twins came out looking like Lannisters, Tywin possibly thought they could truly be his, or at least gave him the benefit of the doubt. They didn't have the distinct Targaryen characteristics. They were perfect, just like he dreamed. The icing on the cake is when Jaime says, "I am a knight and Cersei is a queen." Joanna starts to cry and walks away with the sound of lullabies. Yes, I agree that she is crying for the fact they could definitely be better people in Joanna's eyes. Jaime and Cersei have been quite monstrous in many ways. So yes, the tears could be from sadness, as any mother would exhibit when their child disappoints them. But I feel the tears could also be because of the burden of the secret she has kept and had to bear even in the grave. The secret that the children are all the product of the Mad Kings and not Tywin's at all. How ironic would that be for Tywin's character? The other argument I always hear from non-supporters of Tyrion being a Targaryen is the fact that people think it would be so ironic if the twins were actually secret Targaryens and Tyrion being Tywin's one and only trueborn child. Yes, you have to admit it would be very ironic, but I think it would be even more ironic for Tywin to have no trueborn children at all. No child to leave his legacy to after all the atrocities he has done in the name of preserving his legacy. It was all for nothing because he has no children after all. Okay, I'm going to back up and kind of refresh a little bit. So after the golden beautiful twins were born, a little later down the road, Tyrion was born. He was not golden and perfect in Tywin's eyes, and he even had some of the definitive Targaryen traits. Upon seeing Tyrion, Tywin either knows or at least suspects that he is not his child. Tywin knows this child will also be laughed at and made fun of, two of the things he hates the most. Once again, Tywin is faced with the fact that he will also be laughed at and mocked for producing a less than perfect child. All of this is then compounded by the fact that Joanna then dies from the complications due to childbirth. If Tyrion had only come out looking like Jaime, I don't think Tywin would have hated him at all. Speaking of the death of Joanna, and knowing how important it is to Tywin to have a legacy, why is it that Tywin himself never remarried? He certainly expected Cersei to remarry and breed and secure other houses and lands to their name. We even seen Lord Bolton marry Walda Frey because he himself needed an heir. Especially since Tywin felt, as far as he was concerned, that he only had Jaime as a worthy male to inherit Casterly Rock and carry on the Lannister name. The importance of having more than one male heir was a reality for that type of society. Look at all of the hardships they had to face, the long winters, the illnesses, the wars, every time you turn around, killing off all of the men. Tywin even lost Jaime to the Kingsguard when Jaime was only 15 years old. That means Jaime was sworn for life. He would not be able to hold any lands and could not take a wife or father any children. Are we supposed to believe that this fact did not occur to Tywin? Are we supposed to believe that he would have been completely content with passing Casterly Rock over to Tyrion? No possible way. And that was even proven when Tyrion asked to become the Lord of Casterly Rock. When Jaime was named to the Kingsguard, Tywin would have realized, at least in his opinion, that he now had no worthy male heir to carry on his legacy. There is no way for Tywin to have known that eventually his unborn grandson Joffrey would later become king someday and have the power to then release Jaime from his Kingsguard vow. So exactly why was it that Tywin never remarried and produced any more children? Maybe, just maybe, it was because he too finally realized with the birth of Tyrion that he truly was sterile. The only time Joanna became pregnant was when the Mad King got a hold of her, be it willingly or not. Tywin must have figured it out, or at least suspected that he was possibly sterile, and feared if he got remarried and a child was not produced, that people would begin to question if the rumors were really not rumors at all. Many people also believe a statement that was made by Tywin's sister, Jenna Lannister. They think that Jenna Lannister confirms that Tyrion is Tywin's only son. One of the chapters in A Feast for Crows, Aunt Jenna says to Jaime, "Tyrion is Tywin's son, not you. I said so once to your father's face, and he would not speak to me for a half of a year." This statement seems pretty straightforward when you're just reading that one specific line. But when you take in mind the whole previous conversation between Jenna and Jaime, it can take on a completely different meaning. During their conversation, Jenna is talking about Tywin to Jaime. She talks about the large shadow he cast, how his brothers coped with living in the shadow of Tywin, how brave and fierce her brother was, even at a young age. She advises Jaime, do what Tywin would have done. She expresses her fears of who will protect us now. When Jaime reassures her that Tywin left a son and wonders why should she fear, that's when she remarks to him that Tyrion is Tywin's son. I believe what she means in this comparison is their personalities and actions, characteristics and capabilities of political maneuvering. Just in the same way as Jon takes on the personality and beliefs of his father Ned. Ned is not Jon's biological father, but out of all the Stark children, he seems the most like Ned in his actions and beliefs. I think the same could be applied for Aunt Jenna's statement to Jaime about Tyrion. Finally, there is also the statement Tyrion makes to Jon from the A Game of Thrones books that some consider to be yet another possible clue. As Tyrion is preparing to depart from his journey to the Wall, he makes one last stop by Jon Snow to say goodbye. Jon pulls his glove off and holds out his bare hand for Tyrion and says the words, "Friend." Tyrion is touched by this gesture and says, "Most of my kin are bastards, but you're the first I've had to friend." This play on the word bastard says it all. Not only could it have the meaning of being an unpleasant, despicable person, but it could also be cluing into the fact that the 3 Lannister children are all bastards themselves. This line in the books could also be hinting at the fact that Tyrion and Jon are indeed kin, linking them through the Targaryen bloodline. There may be a clue hinting to Tyrion being a Targaryen in the Season 8 Game of Thrones trailer that was recently released. In that trailer, we only get one image of Tyrion. Right after his image is shown, we get a clip of one of the dragons and then suddenly a burst of flames from its mouth. I believe they are trying to hint that Tyrion is blood of the dragon. I know a lot of people think that it is foreshadowing Tyrion's death due to a betrayal to Dany and Jon. But if you've been following my predictions, you will know that I absolutely do not believe Tyrion will betray Dany or Jon. I feel that Tyrion has a much bigger role left to play for this story. Now that pretty much wraps up all of the clues and arguments, with exception to one that I can think of that have previously been discussed over the years. I'm sure there may be even more that I have missed. As for me, I am just about completely convinced that all three of the Lannister children are actually all King Aerys' bastard children. But there is one more thing why I believe Tyrion is a Targaryen or blood of the dragon. I think there is actually a very important reason for him to be a Targaryen, and that is his union with Sansa. If Tyrion is Targaryen, as I suspect, he would be the blood of Targaryen and Lannister. Sansa is the blood of Stark and Tully. Their child would be the blood of the three main houses that this story has been about: Targaryen, Stark, and Lannister, with the added bonus of Tully. All three houses are near to dying off due to no heirs. This child, or children, should their union result in twins, would be a bond that ties them all together. A child that could possibly bring an end to the future warring of the houses. This, of course, being very similar to the historical story of the War of the Roses, in which the union of the York and Lancaster families finally brought peace and an end to the civil wars for the English throne. This baby, or babies, that Tyrion and Sansa will have, will be very special. The same could be said about the birth of Jon and Dany's baby or babies in Season 8. Their children will also combine two of the warring houses, Stark and Targaryen. But remember, Tyrion and Sansa's ties three, and actually four, but three really important houses. But in all reality, that task was already accomplished in the past by the birth of Jon from Lyanna and Rhaegar. The absolute most important characteristic about the children of Dany and Jon and Tyrion and Sansa is the fact that we once again have the union of ice and fire. This is a huge theme throughout this story. This is where the Night King ties in to this part of my predictions. One thing is for sure, these children, along with any other children born at this stage of the story, will be the future for our characters. A dream of spring. That pretty much wraps up this video. I know this had a lot of information, but I wanted to try and cover everything that was out there regarding this subject. Stay tuned for my next video, because the big bad Night King is coming up. I have a ton of things I need to cover for him too. I hope you all have enjoyed this video. Please be nice to each other in the comments. We don't have to agree on our opinions. We have to understand that it is the love of this story that brings us all together. If you want to show your support for my channel, please hit the like and subscribe button. Turn on your notifications so you don't miss any of my future videos. Also, in case you have not seen my older videos, please check out the first 3 videos I ever made. They will all be happening this final season. Thank you to all of my current subscribers. I really appreciate your support. Please, everyone, have a wonderful day.